Okay, I got another question for today. How much money do I need to get started in real estate investing for a down payment? So, I was a banker for over 20 years, and it's different. Have you noticed all my answers never are definitive? There's always so many variables. So, here's the deal. Most real estate, so if you're buying it, okay, so let's take this. Let's say you buy your primary residence and then you decide to upgrade. That's how I got started. So buy your primary residence and then move out, and rather than selling it, get a home equity line up to 100%, go to a credit union or something like that. Use that for your down payment on the next house, which is generally about 20%, and then rent out your existing. Now get the home equity line while it's still your primary residence, because they won't do it on commercial properties, on rental properties. So there's your first property, right? That's how I did mine. In that case, you need no down payment. Boom, done, first rental property, right? So let's say that's not the case. You're satisfied in your house right now. Generally speaking, you're going to need somewhere between 20 and 25% minimum to buy your first rental property. Are there caveats? Yes. You can find somebody that's willing to owner finance. You can find somebody that you can assume their loan. So there's all kinds of experts out there that can talk to you about how to do creative financing, that type of thing. But so let's just take the other 85% of the people out there that you want to buy their investment property or their home and turn it into an investment property. What banks are looking for is they want to see, let's just call it, if it's a commercial loan, you're looking at 25% down. So a $100,000 purchase, you need to have $25,000. Where do I get that? Home equity line. Cash out some of your stocks. Private money, right? There's all kinds of different ways that you can do it. Now that's if you're kind of starting small. You could do a syndication if you want to just jump in with both feet. So generally speaking, you're going to need to have 25% down. Well, Dave, I don't have 25 grand laying around. Well, you may not. You may have 5 grand. So who do you know that has 20,000 that wants to invest with you? If you've done the deal properly and it's cash flowing like a champ, then you can use some of that cash flow to pay back whoever's invested with you. Sell a car. Here's another way. You got a car that you own free and clear? Go refinance it, pull out some cash that way. And you just piece it together. When I was 24, I bought a Subway franchise. I thought that was the way to go, right? I was going to buy Subway. I was going to own a bunch of Subways. And I was going to be a sandwich gazillionaire. Anybody that's owned a restaurant will tell you that that is hard work. And the margins are tight. And you're putting up with managing people. And that's a Subway. I can't imagine a restaurant. I've heard people say a restaurant's what you give your worst enemy. So I would not get back in the restaurant business myself. Real estate is way easier. Because guess what? Everybody needs a house. Not everybody needs a 6-inch sub. So, but what did I do? I had to get creative. And this is what separates the haves and the have-nots. Is you got to get creative. You got to think outside the box. So you got to come up with 25 grand. So what I did when I was buying my Subway, and I had to come up with 45 grand as a 24-year-old. Now, it's the equivalent of probably 90 these days. I was just kind of fresh out of college. I didn't have anything. So what I do, I went, going down memory lane here, but these are just some ideas. I went and bought a car. I had a car. It was a Honda Prelude, and I could buy it for, I don't know, $4,000. And I was like, oh man, I know it's worth a lot more than that. I just happened to know somebody that was getting rid of it. So I drove it for a while as my second car, and then sold it for 7 grand. Now that's only 3, right? But maybe I owned it free and clear. I don't know. Maybe that was 7. We're going some landscaping here. Bear with me. Morning.
Thank you.
So, you know, that was car flipping. You do what you got to do. I went to a buddy of mine from college and I said, hey man, I think he lent me another $5,000. And I paid him a decent interest rate return on investment. Now, that's where you're building relationships too, because obviously he had to trust me. He had to know that no matter what happened, that I was going to pay him back before I fed myself. And that's where, you know, character and integrity come into play. And if people know that you're a person of character and integrity, they'll invest with you. So, because it's, now from my perspective now, it's a huge burden to borrow money because I know that I'm going to pay them back. And I'm going to pay them back before I put food on my table. That means I got to take food out of my kids' mouths to pay them back, but that's what I'm going to do because I'm a man of my word. So that's why I don't borrow a whole lot of money. So again, I think this is becoming more of like a creative financing type question answer. The bottom line is the number is what the number is. There's no getting around it. If you're going to get a bank loan, they're going to require $25,000. Now, what else do you need? You need to have more than 25. Because odds are if you're getting a deal on the property, you're probably going to put some work into it. So maybe you can put some sweat labor in it, but you're still going to need materials. You're probably going to have some holding costs before you can get a tenant in there if you're doing like major renovation. So you want to have a little bit extra too. So go into it knowing you need 25 on a $100,000 deal and a little bit of wiggle room. And don't plan on living on that cash flow, right? Because it's not guaranteed. That is what you're doing to kind of seed the rest of your investments. Because, listen, anybody that's watching this, don't get in this to buy one or two. I mean, there's plenty of people that own one or two, and it's great. But what ends up happening is you ended up getting an offer, you know, from an Open Door or some other place like that, and you sell and then go buy a boat or something. I want to talk about legacy wealth. I want to talk about buying and holding, passing these things down to your kids, you know, rather than paying. My plan is not paying for college. If my kids want to go to college, I'll give them 5 houses and say, manage these and pay for your college out of the cash flow. So that way they're getting a real education while they're getting their, you know, underwater basket weaving degree. So, because that's the real world education, not bagging on professors or education. I mean, I have a 4-year degree, and what it taught me was, yeah. I'll tell you what, man, my business school was more brutal than any business situation I've ever been in, more cutthroat. It was good. I loved college. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. But was it worth the money? Would I have been better served taking that money and buying rental properties? Yes. Yeah. So think about that. Think about that with your kids, or if you're thinking about going to college and you're watching this. Hey, Mom, Dad, what if we take that fund and we invest in this? You know, take that same 25 grand, okay? Now here's a for you. If you are going to school or you got kids going to school, buy a quadruplex, buy a duplex, right? Or just buy an investment property, have your kid move in, get 3 roommates, have all the roommates pay $250 a month, right, to have their own room. So you buy a 4-bedroom, 1-bath in the college town. Yeah, it's going to be a little more expensive. Have each one of the kids pay $250, $350, whatever it is a room, a whole lot cheaper than a dorm room. And then you teach the kid to manage. They're learning money management. They're learning budgeting. They're learning, you know, in the meantime, you're getting a tax write-off you don't get by paying for a dorm room. You're getting appreciation for this property. At the end of 4 years, you probably paid principal down of $5,000 to $8,000. You've saved, probably probably $60,000 in dorm cost, right? You've made, I don't know, 20, 30,000 in rent from his roommates. And it's just, and more than any of that is you've taught your kid a real valuable lifelong lesson of you know, maybe more than he learns or she learns from the 4-year degree. So I read about that in a book way back in the day, Charles Givens. I think it was called No Risk Financing or something like that, way back in the day. So just some old school wisdom there. So it's not like these hacks have been reinvented. They've been around forever. It's just a matter of utilizing it. So take that money, take that $25,000 or whatever you put aside for little junior's education, put it into a rental property, and house hack. So that's about it. I think it's pretty much black and white when it comes to down payment. The banks aren't going to, where the banks will get a little creative with you is, let's say you're doing a flip, they'll require that you put 25 down on the purchase, and they'll do maybe 100% of the fix-up cost. So you may not have to do the full 25% on all the money you need. Just depends on what kind of deal it is. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, visit kingsfundinvesting.com. Submit a question. I'll answer it. Later.